Is it going? Just says that live. Okay. Yeah, I got it. Hey everybody. Just figured I'd send a quick check for y'all, but we're doing good right now. I just dozed off on the couch unintentionally, and I forgot to give a quick check for today. But yeah. Oh, when I can't actually get in contact with you guys, I'll probably post a quick check like this. For those of you who aren't aware, my little brother has passed away, and my mother is currently in the custody of, well, I'm not sure if it's a lot to deal with, but right now we're doing good. We're fine, but if I can't actually, Facebook you guys, live, because I don't have my phone and I don't know how to access my stepfather's, I'll post a quick check to let you guys know everything that's going on. If you have any questions or anything, just comment them down below and I'll see if I can answer them in the next quick check. Just keep supporting and pray that the two of us get through this. But, I guess I don't really have much that I can say right now. In the comments, I'll leave something if you guys want to know what's going on. There we go. Well, I gotta go and get back to bed. I'll probably post another quick check tomorrow. So, doodles.
Welcome back to another episode of Dreading, or if this is your first time here, welcome. Today, we are going to be talking about Paul Ferguson, the eldest son of Shanda Vander Ark, and how he was primed by his mother to help torture his younger brother to death. This video has been requested countless times since we've covered Shanda, but honestly that case took a little bit of the wind out of our sails, so we wanted to wait at least a little bit before covering this. So, here it is. If you haven't seen our coverage of Shanda, I will leave a link to the original video in the description box down below. The video itself is over 4 hours long, but contains pertinent details of the case and helps paint a picture of the life that Paul and his brother Timothy would have been living prior to the murder. All relevant details will be shared here, but actually watching how Shanda reacts to her son and how Paul reacts to her is important, as it showcases just how much power and control the mother had over her children. Before we go any further, a content warning is needed for this video, as the subject matter is incredibly difficult to digest. Though we do run a true crime channel and are constantly looking through the most horrific cases of the worst crimes imaginable, this case has managed to stick with us in the majority of our viewers who watched the initial coverage. If you are not in a place to take in this information for whatever reason, please click off. This warning is only as effective as you allow it to be, so please take care of yourselves. This video was only made possible through Rottweiler Investigations' initial posting of the interrogation footage in this case. If you enjoy our content, I cannot recommend their channel more, as they upload the raw interrogation and court footage from incredibly complex cases. A link will be left in the description box down below for you to check them out, if you so choose to do so. I will also leave a link to the original upload of this footage for those who would prefer to watch it without any of my commentary. As always, if there is a video you would like to see on the channel, or a topic you want to bring more attention to, email us at dreading.official@gmail.com. We are constantly sifting through our email, adding new topics to our list, with the general hope to cover all the viewer requests. But, as of now, we're patched up, we're good to go, we're big, we're bad, and of course, we are back. So with all of that said, let us begin. Unfortunately, not much is known about the childhoods of either Paul or his younger brother Timothy, outside of the fact that they both dealt with sensory issues, which their mother Shanda Vander Ark found to be annoying. despite the fact that Shanda also dealt with sensory issues herself. She would state in court that she felt as though Paul and Timothy's needs were less severe than her own, and that they often used those issues as an excuse to bother her. Despite the fact that Timothy was diagnosed with autism, she would insist that their issues were more for show, and something that she would eventually grind out of them. Shanda was an extremely controlling, narcissistic individual. Her online presence indicated a woman who felt as if she were always right, even though she was obviously wrong, and she would consistently go out of her way to provoke arguments in order to establish a sense of dominance in her own community. In modern terms, she was kind of a Karen. For example, she would regularly breastfeed in shops and stores. If an associate were to come up to her and ask her to move to a more discreet area, sometimes even offering to take her to their designated breastfeeding station, she would attack them and the business, stating that she was well within her rights to breastfeed, and that they were infringing upon her rights. It would seem that Shanda liked to argue, mainly because she liked to be right, but she didn't stop at simply verbally accosting service workers who were simply doing their jobs. She enjoyed doing this with her children. Shanda seemed to think children were basically the same as adults, and had the same amount of control over their actions and motor skills as a regular person. So when a child would make a simple mistake, like spilling juice on the floor, or accidentally knocking something over, she would attack them the same way she would had an adult purposely done so. Normal childhood hijinks were viewed as malicious, and something that needed to be worked out of them. In fact, she would go so far as to say that Timothy had been manipulative even as a baby, despite the fact that babies literally can't do that. In our time covering these cases, Child Protective Services have come up countless times, and are usually found wanting. However, in this instance, they would determine that Shanda was an unfit and abusive mother after validating multiple third-party accounts of child abuse against both Paul and Timothy. Upon viewing her case, CPS determined that her parental rights should be terminated and that both boys should remain solely in their father's custody. Despite that determination, Shanda, her ex-husband, and CPS would come to an agreement. She was to leave the state of her own volition, and she would agree to no longer see them. Shanda was free of what she would state were the biggest burdens in her life, and free to do whatever she wanted. With more time on her hands, she began studying to be a lawyer and working in a courthouse. However, over time, she would slowly get custody of her children back. Details as to how this happened are murky at best, with Shanda being the one and only resource as to how this occurred. She stated that her ex-husband was ill-equipped to handle their children and their special needs, so as time wore on, he would send each child to live with her. She also alleged that he over-medicated Paul and Timothy, turning them into, quote, zombies, so he wouldn't have to deal with their sensory issues. While she was on the stand, testifying as to how she heinously murdered her 15-year-old son through sustained torture and abuse, she cried, stating that seeing Timothy on that many drugs was inhumane, and that she needed to step in. Shanda went even further to sob at the idea of her boys ending up in the foster care system, instead of with her, despite the fact that she killed one of them and forced the other to participate. From what we know of Child Protective Services' involvement in the case, Paul had been abused by Shanda as well. He had been hurt the same way she seemed to hurt everyone in her life, and he was likely primed to believe that that kind of vicious abuse was normal, which is why he felt comfortable enacting it when he moved back in with his mother. In his experience, simple mistakes were met with severe abuse. By the time Timothy would be sent to live with Shanda, Paul would be over 20 years old and still living with his mother. He worked as a dishwasher part-time and would describe being the man of the Vander Ark household, as his money was usually pooled in with his mother's to pay bills. Shanda put an intense amount of pressure on the young man, telling him that without him, the entire family would not be able to eat, and that she needed him to help them get by, and it was clear that Paul took that seriously. The Vander Arks had fallen on hard times. With 4 mouths to feed, money was extremely tight, and the mother of 3 would describe herself as overworked and overstressed to the point of having long-term blackouts. So when Timothy came to live with the family, she saw an outlet for her frustrations, a sort of effigy to take out her anger on instead of her son. The following is an accounting of what Shanda and Paul did to Timothy after he moved in with them. Despite his impairments and sensory issues, he was forced to do manual labor, sit in freezing cold bathtubs for over 9 hours, kept away from food, and meant to sleep on the floor of a closet while constantly being monitored by his mother and older brother. Cameras were set up to monitor the 15-year-old at all times, and he would be placed in stress positions that the military would use on prisoners of war. While at work, Shanda would watch the cameras and advise Paul to punish Timothy should he fall out of these poses from exhaustion, or simply move in a way she didn't like. Even when he was sleeping, he wasn't given respite from the abuse. Paul and Shanda had shackled him to the walls and attached sensors on him, so if he moved while sleeping, they would be alerted and be able to punish him. He was rarely allowed to eat anything, leading to his weight dropping down to 70 pounds. When he was allowed to eat, he was given slices of bread with absurdly hot sauce on it, which often forced him to gag and throw up. Because of the severe food deprivation, Timothy would often try to escape his confinements to find food. He was so hungry that he often ate whatever he could get his hands on, which was usually frozen food that was uncooked. When the starving child was caught, this would immediately be used to justify even more horrific abuse. As time went on, the abuse escalated, with Shanda thinking of more sadistic ways to punish her son. She would text Paul while at work, telling him to put warm food in front of Timothy's face, then snatch it away when he would try to bite it. She advised him to put hot sauce on his genitals, and she scolded the 21-year-old if he didn't do exactly what she said. To be clear, Paul was an adult. He could have and should have gone to the police for help, but given the situation he was brought up in, he likely thought that what they were doing, though not right, was normal. In a sense, he was groomed to abuse his brother and see him as the enemy. Moreover, as long as negative attention focused on Timothy, he likely felt safe, but the young boy could only endure so much. On the morning of July 6, 2022, police were called to the Vander Ark home. According to court records, they were told that Timothy had been injured in a fall from a bunk bed in the home, and that he wasn't responsive. However, the moment they entered the basement where the bunk bed was, they knew something wasn't right. Timothy was skin and bones, and his body had visible signs of hypothermia. It was obvious that he didn't simply fall off of the top bunk, and as the police looked around the basement, they were horrified at what they found. They discovered the closet that Timothy had been locked in for the majority of his time in the household, and were overwhelmed by the smell of fecal matter. They saw the chains on the wall and the cameras that had been set up to monitor the young boy, and realized that they had stumbled into something much more sinister. On the police body cam footage, Shanda was hysterical, stating that she didn't hear Timothy fall during the night and that she had no idea how long he had been injured. When the police asked her about Timothy's weight, she stated that he had been on a hunger strike for a while, and that he wouldn't eat even when she implored him to. Later on the security cameras that she'd set up around the house, Shanda was heard advising Paul to parrot that same story. The following is the footage as made available by Rottweiler Investigations here on YouTube. We will start with the body cam footage of the police officer, Sean Stefanich, from the day Timothy died, where he interviews Shanda on the front porch of her home.
I'm Officer Stefanich. Right now we got some people coming over to talk to you, okay? You have another son inside the house?
I do. Yeah.
Are they sleeping still right now?
One of them is, yeah. The
Oh.
20-year-old's awake.
He's 20?
No, the 20-year-old's awake.
Okay.
He's been wearing really loose clothes the last couple of weeks.
He's really skinny.
He's really skinny, and I didn't notice till this morning because he wouldn't, I asked him if he's okay, and he would not answer me. He's 15. He's been...
He has autism?
Yeah.
Like a high functioning?
Yeah.
So this is obviously not true. Shanda was well aware of how skinny Timothy was because she would watch him as he sat naked in ice baths for 9 hours. She was aware that he had no fat on his body and thought it was funny, often mocking his body in text messages with Paul. But she knows right from wrong. She knows that her sustained abuse caused Timothy's death, and so she is trying to explain how he died in a manner that makes her look blameless. Timothy didn't die because he was starved, or forced to run up and down the stairs of their house for hours, or made to sit in freezing baths. He died because over the past couple weeks, he simply decided to stop eating, probably because of his autism. It's a poor excuse, but again, Shanda has showcased countless times that she believes that she is the smartest person in every room. She was working to become a lawyer and had incredibly high test scores, so she would purposely start arguments when she went out in public because she knew she could win them. At this moment, she believes she is going to get away with murder.
I had no clue how bad it was. Oh my God. Like I said, he did this back in, my husband's stroke was January 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
So he did this back in, second week of January for almost 3 weeks. And then he ate something last night. I can't remember what it was now, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Where's your husband now?
He's down at his parents' house because he can't get in our house because the truth. He can't get up the stairs.
Oh.
And nobody's answering the phone at their house. Oh, how did it? Oh.
You can go back in the house if you want, but I can't. I gotta keep the basement secure. You can't go down there, okay?
I get it. I had no idea. I would have taken him in or something. Oh.
Now, you said the last time you saw him was 5:30 this morning?
Yeah.
Did he say anything
He had fallen out of bed.
at 5:30?
Yeah.
You sure it wasn't earlier?
I mean, it's possible. I thought it was 5:30, but I wasn't super awake. I heard a thunk, and I came down, and he's kind of laying on his side, kind of like, what the heck? And I reached out, and I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Sorry. Oh my god. Oh my god. Yeah. And I reached out and he pulled himself up, and I asked him if he's okay, and I just asked if he hit his head. He said, no, I think I hit my knees on my chest. I think. He couldn't tell me how he fell. Oh my god. No, I don't know what to do. Oh my god. He said it's okay. And then.
Do you have other family here in town?
Well, in West Olive, but they're not answering.
Yeah.
My father-in-law's an attorney.
Best thing to do is surround yourself with family. Help you get, because, right now you're going through it by yourself, and you get overwhelmed.
No idea. How could I have missed that? He's been wearing baggy. I mean, he's wearing a hoodie for crying out loud, and I just didn't. His face didn't look like that. What the heck?
Now, what's your first name, ma'am?
Shanda, Shanda.
And what's your last name? Is it Ferguson also?
No, it's Vander Ark. Vander space capital ARK. That's why I asked him to eat last night, because his face started looking a little thin. I'm like, okay, enough. And he wouldn't show. I'm like, let me see. Hold your shirt up. And he wouldn't hold his shirt up. He wouldn't do anything.
Did he get real skinny last time too?
Yes. The only reason I know is because my 7-year-old walked in on him accidentally when he was in the shower downstairs. And then my 7-year-old comes up and he's like, Mama, Timothy's really skinny. I was like, oh.
Obviously, that is a lie, but let's take a moment to note how quickly she came up with that lie. The cop is questioning her mildly, but he's just trying to get a grasp on the case. So when he asks if Timothy got this skinny last time he went on a hunger strike, she says yes, and thinks of a reason why she would know that. She doesn't know that because she saw Timothy turn into skin and bones over the year he was in her custody. She doesn't know that because she was monitoring him day in and day out, making sure he wasn't able to eat. She only knows that because Paul walked in on Timothy in the shower once and saw he was stick thin. It's imperative to her story that Timothy be seen as too difficult to effectively parent. She needs him to be the kind of teenager who would be so self-destructive that she, the sweet mother, couldn't stop him from starving himself to death. It takes her no time to make up a fictitious scenario to bolster her argument.
Is that this time or last time?
That was last time. That was like first week of February is when DC discovered that. And I told him he was either going to start eating multiple times a day, or I was taking him to the hospital, and he didn't want to go to the hospital, so he
ended up eating on his own.
Yes.
Okay. And then, so this last time, was it because your husband's wasn't home?
Well, he hasn't been home since January 3rd, but he had a grand mal seizure. God, it's been 3 weeks ago now, and it was right after that. He actually mentioned he was hungry the day his dad and stepmom called to tell us they were divorced and moving to Florida last week.
Where do they live?
They lived in Oklahoma, but they moved to outside of Jacksonville, Florida, and they're not answering their phone either.
Okay. And that's his biological father?
Yeah. Yeah. He moved up here with us last May because his dad couldn't handle him. And he's been great. I mean,
last May, like, as in May of last year or this year?
Yeah, May of last year.
Okay.
May of last year.
And he goes to school and everything he was?
I've been homeschooling him online because it's high functioning. He's just done better at it. I can show you his grade report online. I've got all it's online.
Okay. Is he doing okay?
Yeah, he was failing math, which is not unusual, but he was passing everything else.
This is one of the only times Shanda will ever say something positive about Timothy. Even throughout her trial, Shanda characterized her 15-year-old son as being sneaky, deceptive, and borderline evil. She validated all of the punishments she gave him because he would sneak food when he was starving and wouldn't cooperate with the abuse he was forced to endure. But now, directly after his death, she is saying he was doing well in her home. He was working hard in school and getting decent grades. This lie serves the same purpose as the previous one. It's supposed to make her and her alone look good. She is the grief-stricken mother who, despite all that she had to put up with from her son, was able to homeschool him effectively. She helped him in every way she possibly could, and it's not her fault that he died.
What's his date of birth?
8/6 of 2006. I tried to check it in the last few days, and he just wouldn't let me anywhere near him. He didn't want a kiss, a hug, nothing.
Probably didn't want you to give him a hug because then you could tell that he was...
I would have known. I told him he was stumbling a little bit last night, but he's not the most coordinated kid in the world. And he said he was okay. And then he ate.
What was the last time he ate, you think?
Last night. No. Gabriel, keep him up there. He ate toast.
There's two. There's a 7-year-old and a 20-year-old.
The 7-year-old was asleep. I guess he's not now. Oh my God. I should have made him eat.
Throughout this interview, Shanda has been feigning sadness over her son's passing. She's been rocking back and forth, rubbing her face, and trying to produce tears, but her shaky, tearful voice has been consistent all the way through. If you were simply listening to this interview, you would likely assume that she was crying throughout it. But the moment her youngest son, Gabriel, begins to make himself known, her entire demeanor changes. She stops any self-soothing gestures. She turns with her eyebrows furrowed in annoyance, and her voice is completely hardened. But then, immediately after directing the cops to keep her son in the home, she goes back to pretending to cry, completely unaware that her mask just dropped.
I feel like such a failure. You see there's food in the house. Oh my God.
Where does he sleep at? Right there? In that room?
That loft bed.
Okay. So notice there's another loft bed in another room.
Yeah, that's my 7-year-old, but he's been sleeping with me since because the youngest is my husband's and mine. Mm-hmm. And he's been sleeping with me since his daddy had a stroke.
Okay.
Because he's scared. And I offered to let Timothy move in there but he wanted to stay in his bed. Oh my God. No. I should have made him eat. I should have done something. Can they really hide that from you like that?
They can hide a lot of things from you.
Oh my gosh.
Shanda was looking for some reassurance when she asked the officer if a kid could really hide the fact that they were starving to death. For the whole time they had been talking, she has been leading the charge, with Sean giving very few signs about how he feels. It's common to seek out validation in moments of stress or when you're being dishonest. So when the officer states that kids can hide a lot from their parents, she agrees. It's that one response that makes her feel as if she is successfully getting away with murder, despite the fact that police can see that there is a lot more to this case than what she says.
What's your date of birth, ma'am?
3/13 of 79.
What's your phone number?
I'm sorry. Area code 405-537-6900.
Okay. You can call, make some calls if you want again.
I'll try again in a minute. I'm sorry. I don't know what to do.
Nothing I can say could help you through this, you know. The best thing is to do is just bring your loved ones in and just...
His baby brother doesn't know what's going on, and I'm going to have to tell him eventually, but I don't want to yet. Oh my gosh.
Well, we have to investigate every death. So I can't let anybody go in the basement for now.
You're kidding.
A medical examiner's going to be coming here in a little bit.
I'm sorry, it's a little cluttered down there, but...
You're fine.
I'm sure y'all have seen a lot worse.
Okay. You're probably going to get asked the same questions multiple times, so I'm sorry for that.
It's fine. Like I said, I feel like I just missed something.
So if you want
How
to,
could he hide that from me? How could he do that? Oh. I work in White Cloud.
mm-hmm.
So
Well, that's a long way.
I'm law clerk to the circuit court judge up there.
Mm.
I love my job, but yeah. Oh my god. Oh my god. How could this happen?
So in cases where a person has any sort of influence or connection to the justice system, we often see this kind of statement made. Shanda wasn't asked where she works. She wasn't asked what her employment is. But as the cop begins to move away from her and advise her that the medical examiner would be there shortly, she advises him that she is actually a law clerk. That is supposed to build some kind of camaraderie between the two, to put them on the same level. But as she is rotting in prison trying to appeal her sentence, it obviously didn't work. Moreover, most cops would not overlook direct evidence of a murder.
Pardon?
Where does he sleep?
Down there, right there in that room.
So that's...
The bed.
Yeah.
You see the pillow and the blanket and stuff?
He sleeps on the top bunk?
Yeah, it's a loft. There's no on a bunk. There's
Okay.
stuff underneath it.
Oh, it's like a desk on the underneath?
Yeah, well, yeah, the desk got broken, but there's boxes underneath it. Oh,
So you heard him fall.
yeah.
That woke you up?
Yeah.
And you went down there and he was...
And I helped him up. I asked him if he wanted something to eat, because the first time I noticed anything on even his face was last night. And he said, "No, I'm not hungry." I said, did you hit your head?" And I checked his head to make sure he didn't have anything. I noticed he has some scratches on his face. I'm like, "Are you okay?" "No, I'm fine." And then I watched him get back up on his bed. And then I went back upstairs. And then I woke up and wanted to check on him this morning when I was getting ready for work. So I went down there and I said something. I didn't see him wake up, and I shook him and he didn't respond.
Was he on the bed when you came down there?
Yes.
And then you pulled him down and started CPR?
Yes.
Okay.
I called 911. My 20-year-old was getting up because I was going to drop him off at work early, because his e-bike has a flat tire. Oh my gosh. I should have noticed this. I should have seen this. Oh my gosh.
All right.
No.
We have people coming to talk to you called victim services.
Okay.
They'll help you through
Thank you.
the grieving process because
Please. I feel... He's really good at hiding stuff. That's part of the reason his dad couldn't handle him, is because he kept lying about stuff.
And we've come to the portion of the interview where she directly begins to speak ill on the son that she killed. This is more of the Shanda we have come to know, as this is exactly what she did while at trial. A link to our original video will be left in the description box down below, alongside a link to her full testimony without her commentary.
how old is he? 15?
He'll be 16 in August.
Okay.
But his dad texted me last May and said, "I can't handle him anymore. I have to send him to live with you." And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, absolutely."
Why was that? What did he do that?
He was lying to him. He was destroying things.
Is he hard to deal with?
I don't think so, but I'm stricter than his dad.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that, I mean, he's the lying's been a problem. But nothing major.
Yeah, nothing crazy.
No. He's
All teenagers lie.
tripped down the stairs a couple of times, like just half the flight. And then later he came back to me, admitted he did it intentionally. But I've asked him, I'm like, "You're trying to hurt yourself?" He's like, "No, I just wanted to see what would happen." That's the way, a lot of times, he wants to see what would happen if he does stuff. And, oh my gosh.
And I guess he's prescribed ADHD medicine, but he's not taking it.
Yeah, because he wasn't able to sleep with it. And he was doing really well, and he asked me if he could not take it, and I said, okay. And it was killing his appetite. That doesn't help. He quit taking it about the time of the first hunger strike, because, when he finally started eating, and he was.
But he did eat last night, you said?
Yes. He had some toast with butter on it, is what he had. That's all he wanted to eat. He said his stomach was a little upset, and he didn't want to eat anything else. gosh. You want to go check on the other kids?
Yeah, you can do that for sure.
I know my 20-year-old's got my 7-year-old, but still.
Nope, it's...
Hey. Paul? Yes. You okay up here? Yeah. I'm sorry I spluttered, Joe. I'm really sorry. Oh my God. I knew I should have made him eat, but he just went. Did you notice it was covering up with big clothing? You didn't notice, never mind. I love you, dear, but you never noticed it.
Do you have a picture of him before he started losing weight?
Yeah. See if I can find it. Nice pictures of him. Freaking teenager.
You doing all right? Yeah, it's almost like you're in a daze. Like you don't know what's real and what's not. Have you been talking to him at all recently?
I talked to him yesterday morning to get him up.
That was right basically when we started.
Okay, so how long ago was that?
Did you know that he was in this hunger strike?
I think yeah. Sorry.
I mean,
Did I tell you or not? I don't know if I did or
no,
not.
I don't think you did.
Because he's skin and bone.
I know, and how did he?
He's really...
Well, he doesn't communicate with him hardly at all. Like, they say hi and they don't, yeah, he's...
Are you guys...
This is patently false. There is a purpose behind this lie. Shanda wants the police to continue to focus on her. All of the questions and concerns about what happened to Timothy need to come her way, because that is the only way she can control the outcome. If she is allowed to be the only one the cops talk to, and the only one they get their information from, they will come to the conclusion she needs them too. Any attention that is given to Paul, she immediately wants to redirect, as he might do something to make them look guilty. At this point, she believes she has done a great job at making them look innocent. She thinks the cops are buying her story, and simply won't notice the locks on the refrigerator and pantry, or the cameras in the bathroom and closet. But if they do, she knows she is clever enough to think of a lie on the spot.
Full brothers or half brothers?
They're full. The only half is the one that's in there.
Okay.
We are full.
Yeah.
I might as well get your name while I'm here. You're probably going to be asked this 1,000 times, but what's your first name, son?
Paul, Paul.
What's your middle name?
Byron, Byron.
And last name?
Ferguson.
Nobody's answering the phone here.
What's your date of birth?
04 or
His dad's
10th of April 2002.
Do you have your own phone number?
I recently got a new phone, so I want to look at my new number.
Hold on, I'll find it for you.
+1 231 666 4638.
And when was the last time you talked to Tim?
Yesterday morning when I was getting him up.
No, yesterday afternoon before you left for work. Before I picked you up and took you to work because your e-bike tire flat. You from then.
I got off of work at 1
Alright.
this morning.
Has he talked to you recently about his problems at all, or what he's dealing with?
No, he never said a word to me.
Did you guys have normal conversations?
I think the last time we did was before all of this happened. After that,
They
he just kind of shut
literally,
himself.
because he works a lot and they didn't talk.
Yeah. I mean,
And sometimes brothers will tell each other what
That's true.
they're not willing to tell their parents.
Why you went on hunger strike? I mean, I'm assuming it's...
He didn't even know anything about it, he said, so.
That is where the body cam footage ends. Despite thinking she wove quite a yarn about how Timothy starved himself to death, and she was none the wiser, the evidence found in the home was damning. She was arrested the next day and taken into custody. The next day, Paul too would be arrested and brought in. The following is the footage of the interrogation between police and Paul.
That's a recording device, just so that you're aware. I know there's some cameras in here, but the sound is kind of messed up.
Gotcha. So I'm gonna turn that on too, just in case it helps.
Yeah.
'You came down here with Officer Stephens, is that something?
Yes.
How did that kind of all transpire? I don't know how you ended up here.
I was, from what I know that my mother had come, I think, down here.
Okay.
Or something. I think it was something in court, or I don't exactly know the full details.
Okay.
But, she left my stepfather's phone with me. I don't have any access to anything. The only thing that I would be able to do was if the person she's with, I think his name is Stephen or
Stanley. Frank
Stanley. Yes, thank you. If he would contact, I would be able to pick that up, but
Okay.
nothing else.
Were you supposed to work today, or
No,
so you didn't have work today?
no, I have to. It was off.
Okay. Can you go back Saturday, Sunday?
Sunday. Yeah, I think it's a morning shift.
Are you working 2 different jobs? Did you say you're working 2 different jobs?
No, I used to work 2 different jobs.
I heard you say
I
that.
lived in Oklahoma.
Oh, okay. Because I think that your brother was like, I want to work 2 jobs. And you're like, no, you don't.
4 hours of sleep maximum was a nightmare.
That's a joke. That's not even funny, actually. Huh. Yeah, 4 hours doesn't sound like a lot to get anything done. What kind of jobs are you doing then?
Fast food.
Okay.
And I had one before, and then after I graduated from an alternative school early, I started a second one that was by my biological father's demands, basically.
Okay. Have you talked to him at all recently, biological father? Does he know about what's going on? Or?
I don't think quite yet. The last time we talked to him was last week.
Okay.
He and my stepmother got a divorce. So they called and let us know about all that.
What is your relationship like with him? I mean, do you associate with him at all, or not really?
Not really. I found out that a lot of what he's told me about my biological mother up here was nothing more than blatant lies.
Okay.
He said that she didn't care for me, that she never wanted to see me, which were both lies. It was just, he's a control freak.
Okay.
And he's very manipulative.
Not much is known about Paul and Timothy's biological father, as he clearly did not want to have anything to do with this case, but this statement from Paul is telling. He is labeling his father as being a control freak, as well as manipulative and essentially alienating him from his mother, who obviously would be the better alternative. However, those terms could easily and factually be applied to Shanda herself. I mean, to be frank, she was so controlling she directly caused her son's brutal death. Moreover, all of her kids were taken out of her custody due to credible claims of abuse. She had abused Paul and Timothy early in their lives, but at this moment, Paul is adamant that his father is actually the one who is bad. That isn't uncommon for victims of abuse, and is often credited as to why the cycle of abuse continues. But what his father said about Shanda was true. She didn't want him or Timothy. She didn't care about them. She showed this by abusing them when they were younger, and grooming Paul into helping her abuse his brother. That isn't love, that is not care, obviously.
My stepmother's names were never even on anything for like paying bills or for school stuff. It was all him.
Oh, okay. So he's very much in control of everything.
Yes. So, and, I know that night Timothy did eat because we had pizza. He had 3 slices of cheese.
I want to stop it for just a second.
Yes, sorry.
That's okay.
If we compare how Paul is interacting with the police versus how Shanda did, it's apparent that Paul isn't the most composed individual. He's sitting in the chair like a child, apologizing when cops tell him no, and is very visibly uncomfortable. He is not a dominant personality, and doesn't appear to have any self-esteem in this instance. Meanwhile, when Shanda spoke to the police, despite her pretending to be in mourning, she was trying to direct the conversation throughout. While Paul is culpable for his actions, there is a clear power imbalance between the mother and son, one which will make her later argument that he was the one in complete control of the abuse completely void.
I don't want to talk anything specific about the case just yet. Since the police showed up at your house and they brought you down here, I want to advise you some rights before we talk about that sort of thing. What I do want you to know, though, is that we went through the phones, okay? And we're beginning to go through the phones, and there's a lot of evidence in the phones, and I know that you're kind of aware of communication between yourself and your mother.
Yes.
And those sort of things. And that's kind of what I want to talk to you about.
Yeah.
But, certainly those are very serious things that you guys are talking about.
Yeah.
And, from what I saw, it sounds like you were compassionate in that you cared about him, and you sent some pictures that were like, he's looking too skinny and we need to feed him. And, there's sometimes you get frustrated, but at the end of the day, you kept coming back to caring. But the end result is that he passed away, right? And he passed away from not eating food.
Yeah.
But I want you to be aware of this stuff, okay? So these are your Miranda rights, right? So you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law. You have the right to talk on the attorney and the right to his presence before or during any questioning. If you cannot afford to hire an attorney, one will be appointed at public expense to represent you before any questioning. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When we talk about, I just jump right into it.
Yeah.
I know that we talked yesterday. I know that not everything that we talked about was the truth yesterday. That's okay. Yeah. You don't have to feel bad. You don't have to feel guilty about not telling the truth to me. Okay? I want you to just focus on yourself right now and think about what's best for you. Yeah. And let's try to get to the truth of what really happened with your brother, because he deserves that. There's clearly a lot of messages about stuff that you guys are doing with him, about what he's eating, about restricting his food. How did that all work?
Before Paul answers, I think the tone of the officer is something we should address. He is exceptionally calm and non-judgmental, as if he is talking to a child. While most interviews start with the interrogator trying to make the suspect feel at ease, this kind of care is not normal, especially not when talking to someone who abused someone for such a sustained period of time that they died of malnutrition and hypothermia.
What was he allowed to eat?
We stopped the food restrictions recently because we had noticed his thin. We wanted to get that back on. We didn't want any of this. We never wanted him to be injured or hurt. Okay. I loved him so much.
Yeah, I can tell that. I can certainly tell that. When you say we, you're talking about your mother.
Yes, she loved him. We wanted what's best.
Yeah.
The thing is, he was stuck in the past.
Okay.
So the majority of what he said here is untrue, but it's likely the same justification that his mother gave him about why they had to abuse Timothy, and possibly why he was likely subjected to abuse as well. They were hurting him because they loved him, because they wanted him to be better, but he was, quote, stuck in the past, and forcing them to do this to him, which is obviously ridiculous. There is nothing a 15-year-old could do to deserve the torture they subjected him to. Shanda knew that. That's why she homeschooled Timothy and kept him inside for the most part. It's unclear if Paul knew that though, as he clearly believed what his mother told him and held her in high regard.
So you stopped the food restriction. When did that kind of happen? Ballpark that for me.
2 weeks, approximately. We were hoping that we could get enough where it would be safe, and then we could continue to add it back to where we wouldn't have to worry, and we could.
What were the restrictions?
We made sure that it was still something that gave him enough calories and everything. It was rice or bread, and like I said last week, he got pizza.
Okay. What were they in place for, in the first place?
Sneaking food over and over and over.
Okay.
We've tried everything. We were nice. We tried different consequences, but he just he never listened.
What were some of the other types of consequences? Prior to, are we talking
We did take away his devices.
Okay.
Because that was also because he wouldn't stay on his school sites and would just go and try and play games or watch YouTube.
Okay.
The thing is, he should have been held back so much.
Yeah.
But he passed all of his final exams. So I don't think it was my stepmother. My stepmother was amazing.
Yeah.
But I believe it was my father's doing.
Okay.
This doesn't make sense, and again, shows how the well was poisoned against Timothy in the Vander Ark household. Timothy was a smart kid. He got decent grades. He didn't need to be held back, and there's no real evidence to say he needed to be held back. Like any kid, he wanted to play games and browse the web instead of focusing on schoolwork. And given the fact that he passed his classes, he obviously understood the material even if he was on YouTube. This kind of disparaging remark is nonsensical, but it illustrates how Shanda would talk about Timothy with Paul. Timothy was living in the past. He was a bad student. He needed his devices taken away because he wasn't focusing. Therefore, everything we do to him is justified. So far in this interview, all of Paul's lies have been in line exactly with what his mother told him to do. He is parroting her talking points uncritically, but with such sincerity, it's clear he believes what she told him. Paul is an adult. He had a responsibility to do the right thing in regards to his brother, and he deserves to be in prison. At the same time, it's very obvious that he was not the one in control of the situation and does not have a dominant personality.
Helping him pass exams? Was it all online school?
No, back in Oklahoma, he went to public. The thing is, he never really did any of the other work, but when it came to final exams, he had everything he needed to know. So they let him move to the next grade, which was just...
Right. So, you guys lived together back in Oklahoma?
Yeah.
What was life like back there?
Hectic.
Okay.
My step nieces, my stepmother's grandchildren lived with us.
Okay.
Because of stuff that was going on between their mother and their father. My stepmother had custody.
Yeah.
And we had, at that point, we were living in a 4-bedroom with 8 people in the house.
Jeez.
Yeah. And...
Did you share a room with him then?
Yes, okay. And it absolutely smelled. Because even then, even when the bathroom was literally just a couple feet away, he wouldn't get up and go.
Okay. And what is that? You kind of told me about it yesterday, but you said there was some sort of problem that he had that caused that, or?
Yeah.
I
don't honestly know. That's what I've assumed.
Okay.
Because I'm pretty sure it's been basically his whole life that this has been happening. And it's not just that. He's urinated in places back in Oklahoma, in his closet, and dressers.
Yeah.
Everything.
Okay. He's, what type of, disorders does he have that you're aware of?
I know he has ADHD. I believe he has sensory processing.
Okay.
I was never there for any sort of autism spectrum test, but from what I've seen, I know that probably was a thing. I also know he was motor and speech impaired. He couldn't run right and talk right. I think when he was younger, he had to have a surgery on his ears to have tubes put in because he has heightened hearing that was very loud noises could be painful.
Okay. So too much.
Yeah. The fact is that he could hear my stepmother talking with a friend about going to a movie with the TV when it was on really high volume.
Okay.
Because one of those sort of pointers.
What about you? Do you have any of those sort of things or anything?
I have ADHD.
Okay.
And I think they said I was diagnosed with sensory processing, but from what my mother has told me, that's just no.
What is that? I'm not sure. What's sensory processing?
It's basically when you overreact to things way too much.
Yeah.
I guess loud noises and things and bright lights are disturbing. For me, there's not really any of that. The only problems I have is when someone's music has a lot of bass drumming in it.
Okay.
For me, that'll feel like someone's smashing my ribs with a mallet.
Okay.
That's why I don't hardly listen to music very high if it's got bass drums, because it hurts.
Yeah, that would make sense. Did you go to school?
Yes, I went to the school back in Oklahoma. I graduated from Santa Fe High School. Okay. I've even got the diploma and I stand in my room.
Okay. So you graduated from high school. And what you kind of do after that? You just...
I know that my father had kicked me out after, I think May 2 years ago or so.
So May of 20?
Is that 20? Yeah. And due to COVID, the graduation had been postponed to July. And I managed to get my bio mom's number at that point and was capable of talking to her and telling her how all of this had happened.
Yeah.
And I also asked some of the things about what Dad had told me, the whole, did you really not care?
Right.
And from what he told, and I'm pretty sure it's scientifically impossible that she had her tubes undone for Gabriel, which, from what I'm guessing, that's an impossibility, isn't it?
Oh, okay.
So he's a little miracle child.
Fair enough.
He's a blessing to this world.
Yeah. Does your mom feel like that? Certainly. That he's a blessing.
Of course.
Yeah.
She loves him so much.
Yeah.
She loved every single one of us, but my dad's controlish, freaky nature was just, he didn't want her having any contact and screwing all of his control up.
One of the main takeaways from Shanda's trial was the fact that her youngest son, Gabriel, was not abused. There was no sign that he had been hurt throughout his young life, and that was likely because she viewed him as a miracle child. Paul and Timothy had been abused. There were multiple reports of that abuse, but Gabriel was different. He was the child she didn't know she could have, and therefore was better than the other two, better especially than Timothy. He takes the time to state that it was his father, not CPS, who didn't want him to see his mother, that it was his controlling nature getting in the way of his relationship with his mother, who did love him, which again is not true. If someone loves you, especially a parent, they would not abuse you. Love doesn't look nor act like that. But Shanda has successfully martyred herself to her eldest son. Him being taken away from her, having to live in a noisy, chaotic environment, that was all because of his bastard father. If his father weren't around, he could have a happy childhood with a mother who loved him, away from the filth of his father's home. He doesn't even realize that that is a lie. He simply isn't aware that his mom has groomed him over the past couple of years to hate his father, as well as to believe she did nothing wrong and to hurt Timothy. Even after killing his brother, he still thinks the world of her.
Okay.
And there was a thing back in Oklahoma where I had problems with emotional release. I was so terrified of him that I didn't ever want to release any of the negative emotions I ever had around him. There were times where I wanted to say no, but I was so terrified that I just couldn't.
Yeah.
Here, I can release my anger, and I do it in the right ways. I never do it in any way that I'm not supposed to.
Okay.
And if I unintentionally cop an attitude with my mother, I realize it and I apologize, telling her that I did not mean to, that I just slipped a small amount and I'm going to go and do something to calm down.
Would there be any sort of consequence for your mom if you slipped up with her attitude-wise, or how would that work?
There were times when I would cop an attitude that was unnecessary, and she would have me get off devices for maybe 15 minutes, because usually that was what it was revolved around, because I'll be honest, I have an addiction to my devices.
Okay.
It's not something I can really do without, I guess.
Right.
I don't know. I never had very much of that back in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
My dad was strict. He didn't even give me a phone. My sister and my stepsister had phones before I did. And that was due to the fact that he could not raise a male.
Paul is an adult. He's talking about how his mother would take away his phone, computer, and television away for, as he put it, copping an attitude with her. That isn't normal. He then begins to talk about how he has an addiction to his devices, which, frankly, does not seem accurate. Someone who is sincerely addicted to their phone or video games would not be able to hold down a job or be able to participate in the systemic, long-term abuse of another individual. Again, this seems like something his mother told him that he is uncritically parroting.
And at first he thought not that the ADHD was just ADD, because like my mother, I could hyperfocus, which is actually a symptom of ADHD.
Right. And then, so now you're in work. I know you talked yesterday about how you're paying bills and
yep. And unlike my father, she doesn't force me to give her half of my paycheck. He forced that on me. And I was working basically minimum wage at both.
Yeah, that's tough.
It was nightmarish. And the thing is that my stepmother didn't even know about that until after I had moved and I had told her.
Okay.
And she apologized so heavily because she was just going to want some stuff to help with rent at times.
Yeah.
And when he asked to borrow money, he never paid it back. And my mother has paid it back every time. Whether it's in a way like paying for the bike payments for my electronic bike, because, you know, we put a down payment and then we have to do the consecutive payments for it.
Was that your first, would you consider that like your first big purchase on your own? Your electric bike, or have you purchased a more expensive thing?
More expensive than that? I don't believe so. No.
What about PCs? How much you spend a decent amount of money on computers, or trying to just piece them together, or?
We spent good amounts because Minecraft is something I've always loved.
Yeah.
And because for me, for the ADHD, being able to build and be creative is just something that I absolutely adored.
Okay.
And it also was something that I liked doing for YouTube. I have a YouTube channel myself. It's not popular or anything, but it is it's something that I was inspired by from Preston Plays and the recently passed Technoblade.
Yeah. Okay. So, you come here with Mom about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And Timothy comes about a year ago. I think you said yesterday the same date even, right?
Yeah, the same date that I left the house. I moved here into Michigan, I think on the 30th.
Okay.
Because for the time after I had moved out of my parents' house, I stayed with my Uncle Dave and Aunt Linda.
Okay.
Who both had actually been tricked by my father to also believe that my mother was bad until she managed to clear the air.
Yeah.
I can't be more succinct when I say this. No one was tricked to believe Shanda was bad. She abused her kids, so much so that CPS advised all of her parental rights be taken away. The only thing that kept that from happening was her agreeing to move out of the state and never speak to them again. They were not tricked, they were not lied to. Paul was. And even as he sits in an interrogation room discussing his part in the murder of his younger brother, which he did at his mom's behest, he still cannot help but defend her.
So, you say the same date, but a year later, does that sound right?
Yeah, I moved here at a later date, but he moved up here on the day I was basically kicked out.
Gotcha.
My dad had basically put a timeline, like I had to move out by a certain date and have my own house to be on my own 2 feet, which the thing is, he never prepared me for any of this.
Right.
Like I said, I love him. But most of the respect I had for him is gone.
So Timothy comes up here. What's life like immediately when he gets up here?
It was good at first. The thing is, this has happened before. Not like moving up from somewhere, but for the whole thing where I think he said, back in Oklahoma, I think once or twice, he had said something about being suicidal.
Okay.
And we had put him in my stepmother and father agreed on this, that he could be institutionalized. Right. And when he got back, the first couple of weeks were good. He didn't misbehave, but then after that, it just reverted back to what he was doing before. Okay. The destructiveness and everything.
Explain that, like the destructiveness.
It was very dangerous. He would pull the outlet covers off. He would screw with the light fixtures. It was our house in Edmond was his room. He'd pull the studs out of the wall, rip off the paint, and
As we have covered, Timothy was autistic. If you do any research into autism spectrum disorder, you will find that most people who have it have special interests and will often express these interests by taking things apart and putting them back together. You will also find that the majority of autistic people benefit from order and routine in their daily lives. Given Paul had described his brother's house as being chaotic, loud, and full of strange noises and smells, Timothy likely viewed that home as being unsafe and unwelcoming. The fact that he thrived in a sterile, monitored environment isn't shocking. grooming. That was the kind of environment his parents should have set up for him the moment they became aware of his issues, but instead, neither home seemed equipped to take care of him. When Timothy was brought back into Shanda's care, she claimed his father stated he simply couldn't handle the young boy anymore and was going to institutionalize him. When she recounted this fact on the stand, she started sobbing and stated she would have never done that to her son, even though what she did was way worse. But I can safely say that that environment would have been much better for Timothy than either home. Additionally, Paul was brought in to talk about his mother's abuse and his brother's death, but for the duration of the interview, his ire has been focused on his father. Every time he is asked a question regarding himself, his mother, or their lives, he finds a way to make it about how much he hates his dad.
It was, yeah.
Were you able to have a conversation with him like you and I are having, like a back and forth conversation, or he wasn't able to talk like that?
He could talk, but the thing is that it would mostly be hard to understand.
Okay.
Because of the speech impairment, I think it's called. I don't know what that word is.
Speech impediment?
Yeah, there we go. But he was in therapy for that and the motor.
When you up here?
No, in Oklahoma.
Do you know if he needed any therapy or anything up here?
No.
Okay. Do you know if you ever went to the doctor at all?
Here? No, honestly, we never, until, I don't know, we managed, since we stopped the last hunger strike and managed to get him back to a safe weight, we were hoping and praying that he wouldn't need any sort of assistance at that point, which he didn't. He was fine. But then this whole ordeal happened, and
right.
I honestly feel like we should have taken him to the doctor sooner. We could have done something, but with all this that has happened, it's just...
Yeah. Well, I mean, how long ago do you think you probably should have taken him to the doctor?
Honestly, if I'm going to be honest, I'd say the day after the divorce. We got the message about the divorce. And the thing is that my mother can't even face my father right now. She doesn't want to call him because the one thing that she and I both know is that he's going to hurl every ounce of blame that he can at her.
Which she deserves. She killed their son. She systematically destroyed his life, locking him in a closet and putting him in situations similar to a prisoner of war. She deserved to be blamed. But again, Paul rushes to her defense and makes it seem like telling her she killed her son, a factual statement, is wrong.
Right. So when was that divorce?
I think it was exactly a week ago today or tomorrow.
So about a week ago. You thought,
yes. Yeah,
I saw on your phone that you had sent a couple pictures to your mom.
Yes.
Pretty skinny, and you said, hey, he's nothing but skin.
Yeah, I was very concerned. It just,
what do you think that maybe would have been a good time to take him to the doctor, or?
Yeah, honestly, that probably would have been one too. I don't know.
And then you sent a picture of his legs that were just basically gone, right? So
yeah.
No wonder he can't stand or something along the lines.
Yeah, but the thing is, before yesterday and I think the day before, he could walk.
Yeah.
He might need a little support every so often, like he put his hand against the wall or grab the rail of the stairs. But after a couple of seconds, he'd let go and be fine.
Okay.
It was never anything major.
Not being able to walk without assistance because the malnutrition is major. According to text messages between Paul and his mother, Paul would routinely state that Timothy wasn't able to stand on his own and needed help going to the bathroom. In response, a woman Paul believes to be blameless in this ordeal would state that Timothy was just faking it for attention, and that he should wave warm food in the dying boy's face to see if he would walk for that.
Yeah. When was the last time he was really talking to you, able to have a conversation, or at least try to have a conversation?
Last time he actually talked was 3 days ago, but the day before, or the day after that, the day before yesterday, he talked a small amount in the morning, but then he just sort of was making groans and moans, and it concerned me. As my mother was driving me to work, I recommended that maybe we should take him to the hospital.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that ever happened or not.
What did she say about that when you made that recommendation?
I don't know. I think after that, I think that was as I was getting out of the car and shutting the door.
So we're talking, so today's the 7th, yesterday, the 6th. What day are we talking about the last time he was really kind of talking outside of the morning
The 5th. He talked some in the morning. He was responsive.
Yeah.
That much I know.
What's the deal with the photograph in the bathtub of his face? Like zoomed in on his face.
He'd been taking a bath.
Okay.
And I went in there to check on him at one point, and he's just kind of laying there. I'm like, bud, you okay? He didn't respond, but he was looking around, and he was breathing, I know that much.
Yeah.
And so.
Okay. So at that time, but he wasn't talking at that time?
No, and it started to concern me. I'm not sure if I texted Mama about it or not.
Well, you sent a picture to her.
Yeah, I probably should have said something about the ER at that point, though.
Well, certainly
it's so stupid.
You have to think about it like this, right? She's a grown adult, and if she sees that, that's not all on you, right? You made, from what I see, you made numerous attempts to say, we need to do something different about this.
Yeah.
We can't keep doing this thing.
I know she's a good person.
Yeah.
And it's not about, I don't know if this is both of our faults, if we should have done something sooner. I know we both could have.
Yeah. I mean,
it is both of their faults. Paul doesn't seem to have grasped that his mother is going to prison for a crime that she committed. He's still operating under the belief that everything they did to Timothy was normal and not something that they should be ashamed of. Even earlier in the interrogation, he apologized for lying and then unabashedly went into how Timothy was being punished for his own actions, justifying what occurred. He is completely unaware that they are responsible for his death, and that this isn't some big misunderstanding.
I think you have to think about this. Right now is not a time about blaming people, but it's a time to try to figure out, when could we have changed things? What could we have done differently? How did we get to the point where we were at? Because, clearly where you guys got to, you say you was in the bath. That wasn't a nice, enjoyable bath though, right? That was a punishment bath, right? That's a cold, ice cold bath. And that's hard to understand.
I did wash, I did tell him that if he wanted to wash up, and he did, but then in the middle of it, I think the whole laying there in a daze happened.
When he's getting these ice baths, I know there's numerous of them, right? I mean, because I've read through the messages.
Yes.
How are you getting the ice? Like, where's it coming from?
We have an ice machine upstairs. It's not a lot. It can barely create any. It's enough to make it a full-on.
Okay. But it's a cold bath.
Yeah.
And you're putting ice in there? Like, one dump of ice, 2 dumps?
One dump. Yeah, it's maybe that much.
And then you're just running cold water, or what type of water?
The water doesn't exactly go cold. Okay. It says there's a cold button, but it's basically sort of lukewarm-ish.
These are all justifications both Paul and Shanda would have told themselves during the abuse to make what they were doing seem okay. In their text messages, Paul would describe how Timothy, at 70 pounds, would shiver nonstop in the bath and how his fingers would turn blue. But here, it wasn't that bad because the water wasn't actually cold, it was lukewarm. This is obviously nonsense, and forgets the fact that what is lukewarm to an average-sized person is freezing cold to someone who has no body fat. Timothy would have been uncomfortable in any sort of chilly environment, and both of them knew it. It's why they used baths as a punishment. Like in our initial video going over Shanda's testimony, this kind of pussyfooting around what they did is ridiculous, given how much of the abuse is on camera and documented in their text messages with each other. But at the very least, they had convinced themselves that this was necessary. They weren't hurting Timothy because they wanted to take out their anger on someone who couldn't defend themselves. They were just parenting him and helping him move on from the past.
How many times would you estimate that you guys gave cold baths as a punishment for not behaving or whatever, for whatever reason?
I think for punishments, it was, I don't exactly know the number, but it wasn't a lot.
Are we talking like 5, 10, 20, every day, every other day? Like, any idea at all?
5. But
whose idea was it to give him a cold bath as a punishment?
It was my mother's. Yeah. I wasn't sure if it would be a punishment effective or not.
Do you remember the first time you guys did it? Like, why? Like, what did he do?
Not exactly.
What did he do on that day that you sent the photo that made you have to give him a cold bath?
I think it was that he not only peed, but also pooped in bed, and my mother wasn't too happy because it absolutely reeked. Yeah.
He says in bed. He means in the closet he was kept in. As we've established, Timothy wasn't allowed to sleep in the bed because, according to Shanda, he preferred to be locked in the closet and sleep on a tarp. She also stated she didn't want him in the loft bunk bed because it was unsafe, because she really cared for his safety. Timothy would be locked in the closet at night and had to wear motion sensors to make sure that he didn't move too much when he slept. The poor kid knew that if he had gotten up to go to the bathroom, the alarms would have gone off and he would have been punished. No matter what he did, Shanda and Paul would have found a way to punish him for it.
When we talk about bed, I understand we've been to the house and been through all the messages.
Yeah.
Where did he sleep most of the nights? In that closet?
Yes.
When did that kind of start happening? Or had he always been staying there?
No, he hadn't always.
Okay.
But the thing was, the loft bed, if you've noticed, the screws and stuff, that was his doing.
Okay.
And we couldn't get it safely back.
So, he's sleeping in the closet?
Yes. We made sure that it was cleaned. He had a mattress in there, but then he decided to rip off the cover, like a sort of plastic cover we put on there to keep it from getting smelly and disgusting. We always wanted what's best for him. I don't know.
So you guys decide to move him into the closet. There's an alarm on the door. What's that for?
When he would try and sneak, because if you notice, there was also one on the garage door. That was also because, there's some food in there that he would try and sneak.
Right.
And it wasn't just that he was hungry at some points for those. It was that he wanted something sweet. He just... And at times he would be taking stuff that was going to have plans for actual food.
Yeah, I agree. I see exactly what you're saying.
And I don't know about the whole, just bread at some points, but we did start giving him actual better food.
When you talk about the bedroom being moved into that closet, is that your idea or is that your mom's idea?
That was my mother's. Yes.
And, so how long do you think he was staying in that closet for?
Couple of weeks maybe. Okay. I think we truly had started activating the alarm on the door every night after we had found that he would sneak out and get back up on.
Yeah.
Which was loft bed. Where, like I said, that thing was dangerous at that point because he had been screwing around with the bolts and screws, and at any point it could have given way and he could have gotten seriously injured.
Right, yeah. So if he moves into there, there's the tarp in there, if that's just to prevent. What is that for?
That was after I think we'd gone to like 3 plastic covers that he had shredded.
Yeah. Before
we decided to put down the tarp. And honestly, I had expected him to complain, but he didn't, and I don't know.
So there's restriction on food. He talked about bread. For how long was he just eating just bread?
A week or 2.
Most everything said in this portion of the footage is warped somewhat. It's partially honest, but there are a number of details given that aren't entirely correct. Firstly, neither party cared about his safety. They put him in the closet as a punishment. Moreover, Timothy likely tore off the plastic bed cover because it caused sensory issues and made it harder for him to sleep. According to text messages between Shanda and Paul, they kept Timothy in the closet for much longer than just a couple of weeks. This abuse took place over a year, but it seemed that Paul sincerely doesn't realize that. With the extent of the abuse and how much he took part in, he seems to earnestly believe that it was not that bad, that they couldn't have done anything different, and that what he is describing isn't torture. Because Paul didn't talk to anyone about the abuse outside of his mother, they both had decided what they were doing was just normal parenting. They didn't recognize how sadistic and evil they were being, or at least Paul didn't. Shanda worked as a court reporter and had been accused of abuse in the past. She recognized that what they were doing was enough to immediately lie about it. But the way Paul recalls things is as if what happened was just a series of mistakes that they couldn't have seen coming. That restricting Timothy's food, locking him in a dank closet, and forcing him to take long ice baths was justified. This is not rare in situations like this. You see this the most with adolescent bullying, where a group of 2 or more people pick on another, usually weaker individual. They will genuinely believe that they are all just having fun, having a laugh at the other person's expense. And even if things were to get physical, they would feel justified. It's only when an outsider observes their behavior and calls out how horrific it is, or an authority figure repeats back to them what they have done, that they realize that what they were doing was wrong.
What was he kind of eating before that?
We do ramen sandwiches, and I think at some points we actually give him like a meal.
Why was it that he couldn't have meals?
I mean, the whole squeaking, I don't know.
Because he was sneaking food?
A lot, yeah, we, over and over and over.
Who's
There'd
that?
literally be times where I would be sitting on the couch playing,
Yeah.
and then I'd look up and he's there grabbing something.
And so, whose idea was it for him to just eat bread? Is that your idea?
No,
Whose idea was that?
my mother's.
Tell me about the hot sauce. I know that was used as both the punishment and it was put on the bread. Was it always on the bread?
Not always, no. But the thing is, it still hardly did anything for him.
Yeah.
There would be times where it would do something for me because I'd accidentally rub my eye after I put it on there. It was, ow.
Yeah. So you're putting, what dictates whether or not there's hot sauce on the bread that he's eating? What decides that?
I don't know. Whenever my mother told me to put hot sauce on it, I did. It was normally a thin layer to make sure that it wouldn't be too much. Because from what I know, the Ghost, or the California Reaper is, 2,000 Scoville? Or 2 million Scoville?
What does that mean?
It's the hot sauce, or the heat index, basically.
Okay. And that's pretty high?
Very.
So how long have you guys been using the hot sauce for?
Almost a month, maybe.
Okay. And was that only on bread, or was that on other stuff too?
I think one time we put it in some rice.
Okay.
But after that, I don't think we did that again.
What was it used for, right? Because you're giving them bread as a meal. What's the purpose of the hot sauce?
I know it was punishment, but honestly, I don't think it was that useful because, like I said, he had no feeling in his tongue. He totally bit a hole in it at one point and didn't even feel it.
Was he eating this bread with hot sauce, or was he?
Yeah, he was.
Is that really the only things he had to eat those days, or would he get other things to eat?
From the bread and rice, other than that, not that I know of.
Okay. So for how long do you think he just ate rice and bread and hot sauce?
Maybe 4 months, maybe. Or 1 month, sorry.
Okay.
I was thinking 4 weeks and my brain scrambled that.
We totally understand. I understand what you're saying. So maybe about 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Did you see a decline in him during that 4 weeks of losing even more weight or being even less responsive, or what changed when you moved into doing that?
I think it was that there would be times where it would take him a moment to respond. At first I thought it was just him acting, but then I was getting concerned, I think a week or so maybe ago.
Okay. That his responses are delayed, is that?
Yeah, and
as a matter of fact, I think you mentioned that to your mom multiple times, right? That he doesn't seem to be responding, that he can't walk very well, that he's stumbling. I think you mentioned those things too.
Yeah.
What was her response to those things?
According to the texts between them, Shanda would state that Timothy was faking and should be punished more for faking.
I think she was thinking, because there was one point where he did that, but it was before he was thin.
Yeah.
And it scared the crap out of me, but then he admitted to my mother later that day while I was at work that it was an act.
Okay.
So I guess we made the mistake, she made the mistake of believing that that was what it was. I know that he's done stuff like that back in Oklahoma too. He would do something that would scare the crap out of us to make us believe that something was wrong. And several times here, he faked seizures. I've seen it and I've also seen what happens because back in Oklahoma, he had seizures from medication problems.
Okay.
But yeah, I know that I can tell the difference. And at one point, Gabriel had just barely walked back into Mama and Adam's room when he tried it again. Had Gabriel been there, he would have been even more terrified than he already was, because like we said, he was there for the stroke and the seizures, so. Yeah.
While it's absolutely possible that Timothy faked having a seizure and faked being too weak to walk in the past, we should ask the question, why? Because that's vital in this conversation. If you are being forced to sleep in your own filth, food is being kept away from you, and the only time you can actually get care from your guardians is when they believe you are ill, you would likely pretend to be ill often. Additionally, Shanda stating that Timothy, the boy she tormented for a year, admitted to her that he was lying, should be taken with a massive grain of salt. Why would he tell her this? What was the context of the situation? Why would he feel safe enough to admit this to her? Or, why would he feel unsafe enough to say that? If your child is being abused to the point where you cannot tell if what you are doing is causing cognitive impairment, and it's even a question, you should not have custody of that child. Moreover, Timothy was never taken to the hospital during these events, because had he been seen by anyone outside of the family, they would have immediately removed him from their custody. Shanda knows that.
The hot sauce. Whose idea was it to get hot sauce as punishment? Was that your idea?
I honestly don't remember that part. I don't remember whose it was. I know that before we were using the California, we were using ghost pepper sauce.
Where did these sauces come from?
I think it was either Amazon or Walmart apps.
Okay. Did you ever go to the store and buy anything?
No, we didn't ever.
Did you ever order any of those yourself? Or who was ordering the hot sauce?
My mother is, but she would ask if I could help her pay for it, which, like I said, she's been amazing. She's never demanded money.
Yeah. I think I saw a message that where she asked you.
So I knew that she wasn't just going, if I said it not that moment, she would have understood, unlike my father.
Yeah. So the hot sauce on bread, if you ever put hot sauce on bread, was it ever your own decision to put hot sauce on bread?
No.
Sometimes you were left in charge of the two kids, right?
Yes.
How often was that you were in charge?
Sometimes it was during the mornings where she would go to work, but around 3-ish, I would have to go to work myself. She would be home after around 6 o'clock from work. And at that point, she would ask me to have them both go to Gabriel and Timothy to go to their rooms, which, for him at that point was the closet, and Gabriel's was downstairs as well. Gabriel would take his tablet, because if there's one thing we both know, it's that he's also very dependent on that. It's something that keeps him calm and collected.
So when mom's not there, is she monitoring with the cameras? Is that what the cameras in the home are for?
Yes.
And how does she communicate with you?
Text.
Text. From her phone to your phone? Or?
Yes.
Okay. And how does she communicate with the other kids?
Through the alarms, because they do have that dual-way talking, but
so she can talk to them through the cameras. It's never the alarms.
Yeah, it's cameras, not alarms. Jesus, the alarms don't have. Sorry,
you don't have to be sorry. You don't have to be sorry at all.
I can't.
So she's able to communicate with them that way. She's communicating with you via text.
Yes, Timothy doesn't have anything to text with. He does, but I don't think, because we couldn't trust him on devices, so we couldn't exactly.
So you have her kind of monitoring everything.
I do sometimes at some points, yes. I will log into the cameras and make sure that I don't have Gabriel's app, because normally before I leave, he's upstairs in her room. He's been like that for a while. Timothy's or Gabriel's? I don't know about that one, honestly.
Do you know what app was Timothy's?
The one for his room, I think Mama had that one. I know the one in the bathroom was Blue something, BLU, and then something else. Okay. And then the one in the downstairs area was Tekken.
Okay. So wait, was Timothy had his own too in his room?
Yes, but that was before we moved him into the closet. The Tekken was for when he was there, and it was also when he would get up and have to go to the bathroom before this whole...
Which ones do you know how to log into?
I don't think I remember the one for the Tekken, but I think the other one was my sister Millie's name, and then it was 2 numbers, I think. I don't remember.
Okay. When do you think was the last time you got logged into that camera?
The Tekken, it was...
Logging the Blue.
The Blue, I think it was maybe a couple of days ago. I don't...
So, just to be like...
Normally I would, when I would get ready to head to work, I would log out of it because I could not stand. With my Apple Watch, it was connected to my phone, so whenever that got a notification of like Gabriel going to the bathroom, my watch would vibrate during work, and it would be annoying.
Yeah, that's certainly. Okay.
So I wouldn't know what was normally going on during the nights.
Right. So, I know that when we talked yesterday in front of your mom, she was lying about some stuff, right? I know that she's a good person. I'm not doubting that at all.
Yeah, we never wanted any of this.
But you also know, just like I know, that some of the things that she was talking about weren't the truth, right? She said she didn't know there was a camera in the bathroom. But the fact of the matter, she asked you to put the camera in the bathroom, right? Didn't she send you a text message that says, make sure that the camera's in there and take the shower curtain down so I can see him? Didn't she ask you that the day before he passed away?
Yeah.
So we talked about some of that stuff. Remember how during the conversation I said, I know what this pepper's for, it's for punishment. And what did she say? She said, I didn't know anything about that. Right? Why do you think she's saying those things? Why do you think
she doesn't want to appear like a bad person. She doesn't want to be the bad guy in this. We never wanted any of this. We want him to be healthy. I know that for a fact. We should have been so much. I should have at least put my foot down on something.
Right.
But it's not that I'm afraid of her. I can't fear her because she's not the type to instill fear.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's also what caused him to sometimes lie about things as well. Was that he still had this fear of Dad, and then he thought she would be the same.
Yeah. It could very well be the case.
She's nothing like him. That much I know. She's right.
But she knows that you shouldn't be using hot sauce as a punishment, right? She knows better than that. And you know better than that too, right? Yeah. I think that anybody with some common sense knows that hot sauce is not something used to punish a child for eating food that they're not supposed to eat, or for disrespect, or for not following orders. We know those things aren't okay.
I know that. We've tried so many different things. We're running out of options of trying to find a punishment that would actually work. And even that did nothing.
Right.
And we still kept trying though. I don't know why.
So you have the hot sauce.
He keeps saying that the hot sauce did nothing, but that is not necessarily true. With the amount of sauce they were force-feeding him, Timothy likely had a strong reaction, but he was so hungry he didn't care. Additionally, when he states that Shanda isn't the type of parent to instill fear, that is not the case. Later on in this video, we will be going over his testimony in his mother's trial, and his physical reaction to being in front of her and detailing what they did is alarming. He is clearly afraid of his mother's ire and knows not to defy her, but she has essentially groomed him into believing that she is a great mother who is beyond reproach. Sure, she killed one of her children, but it was his own fault.
Tell me about the handcuffs. I know that, once again, she took no blame for that, right? And who did she put it all on? She put it all on you. She said that that was your idea and that those were yours and that you did those things. But I think that's not the truth from what I read on here. What's the real truth on that?
We would have him against the wall at some points, and he would try to move. And at one point, we'd actually put motion sensors on him to stop that. But
On him himself.
yeah, like they were vibrator. They would sense any sort of vibrations.
Yeah.
But the thing is, he'd learned to trick them by moving so slow, or they'd be on his door and they'd be moving so slow that it wouldn't set off. So you'd get away with stuff.
Okay.
So
you're saying standing still, like, was that like a punishment that he was forced to stand
on the
still?
wall, yeah, against the wall, we was having.
Was that regular that he had to do that? Like, how often was he having to stand against the wall?
Since 2 weeks ago, it wasn't very often.
Okay. Just because he couldn't physically stand against the wall anymore?
No, it was, I guess that it just didn't work because if he wouldn't set it off when he was against the wall, he would then, like, it'd be on a belt around him. He'd stuff it in his pocket and then just sit down on the ground or lay down and stay like that.
So he was punished by trying to make him stand, but then he would lay down. Did you guys ever wake him up on purpose because he wasn't supposed to be sleeping?
Yeah, and we also know one thing about him was that if he slept during the day, he was going to be up all night.
Okay. So you wouldn't let him sleep during the day, essentially?
If you wanted maybe an hour long or 2 hour nap, we would, but anything longer, we knew that it would start screwing with his actual sleeping.
So who's monitoring this all the time? Like, who's making sure he's not sleeping during the day? Who's making sure he stands against the wall?
When my mother was at work, she'd have me log in before she'd leave. I'd come upstairs and go back to sleep on the couch. I'd set an alarm normally for 10:30 to 11:30 so that I could wake up and be up to keep things going around the house, keep everything in order.
Okay. So
she never did any of this to be harsh.
As a reminder, the day before Timothy died, Shanda texted Paul that he should put the hot sauce they forced Timothy to eat on his penis to hurt him for pretending he couldn't stand and not being cognitively aware. But sure, they didn't do that to be harsh. She's a great mom.
Listen, I'm in no way questioning whether your mom cared or any of those things. I'm not. But the reality is we just have to talk about how we got to this point and how these decisions were made. So I don't want you to think that.
We also did stop the leg cuffs, I think, a while ago because we noticed that his ankles were swelling. So we stopped that because we didn't want his legs to become irreparable.
How often were you guys putting leg cuffs on before that? Was that something like at night to stop him from moving around, or what was it for?
I think we did it once or so. Once, maybe twice at night. One time. I don't know. I'm so lost. I just don't know what to do.
What about handcuffs or zip ties? What did you guys use those for?
The zip ties were either to fasten the vibrational arms to his belt during the day.
Yeah.
Or to put it on his wrist, not too tight and I would make sure, after the first time we did it, I would make sure to cut off the end of the zip ties because I had them loose. And then he decided to tighten them to where they were nearly cutting off circulation.
Yeah.
So after that point, I myself when I was told to put him in the zip ties, I'd grab a pair of scissors and snip off the ends to make sure that he couldn't tighten it to where it was cutting anything off.
It's extremely hard to believe that he did anything with his brother's health and safety in mind, especially when his mother had fostered an environment where everything and anything would be blamed on Timothy. Food is missing from the pantry, Timothy ate it. Mess in the bathroom, Timothy did it. The zip ties on his wrist motion sensors being put on too tight, his fault. The fact that zip ties were being used on him in the first place is alarming, but the further justification as to why it was necessary and why it was his brother's fault is disgusting.
You guys ever zip tying his hands together?
His hands, I think we did once when we had a pair of them that the zip cuffs.
Okay.
But again, I cut those off to make sure that he wouldn't tighten them. Yeah, because
what was that for? Why would you use those on him?
Normally we have him do this. It was something that I'm not sure if it was my father or my mother back when they were together, but when we were put in timeout, we'd be told to do this. And so sometimes though he'd try and do stuff like this, or just try and put his hands down or down by his side. So we do that to keep them.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long do you think you had those on for?
I think the zip ties, cuffs, probably when we had first used them, it was when I would get ready to leave for work, I'd put them on, do the whole snipping, and then when Mama would get home, she'd grab the scissors and cut them off immediately.
Yeah. How long are we talking? Is this for a couple hours, 8 hours, 10 hours?
Normally the maximum was 3.
Okay.
Because when I worked normally at that point, I think I was only working evening and closing shifts.
Yeah.
It would be 4:30 or 4 o'clock that I'd need to be there. So in order to get there, I would have to leave an hour before to actually make it on time.
Right.
But, and we'd put the vibration alarms on there, but that, again, we stopped that after the zip ties, because with the chains or the chain parts of the cuffs, I think they would rattle to where if you tried to move, it would still set them off, even with the whole slowness.
Yeah. Tell me about the night before. I know that you said you got home at 2.
Yeah.
Let's talk about kind of what really happened that night, because I know that
I did take my meds. He was in his room. I didn't think to check. I should have, though. I should have made sure he was at least okay, that he was breathing. He could have been gone by the time I'd already gotten home.
Right. So when you first talked to us and you talked to the police, you said he was on his bunk bed, right?
Yeah.
But that's not the truth.
No.
Okay. He was in that closet that's right there by the bunk bed?
Yeah.
Okay. And then your mom had texted you that earlier in the night, or how did you know that he was in there?
I guess at that point it was just something I would already know, because I have a slight problem. It's not like a problem, just a small sort of OCD with the light switches.
Okay.
So I'd go upstairs and I'd take my meds, and normally the light switches by the back door, I'd want them down. And then when I'd come over to the stairs, normally when I'd flip it down, the light in the dining room would turn on. So I'd go to the stairs and flip it to turn the light on for the stairs, and the ones in the dining room off. Go downstairs and then flip that switch to get the stairs off, and then the one in there would turn on, and that was how I would know he wasn't in the bed. And then go and turn the ones off at the start of the hall, and then turn off the light with the switch by my bedroom.
So you know he's not in the bed?
Yes.
So you told us that you heard him snoring. Was that a lie?
Yeah.
And did you come up with that on your own, or did somebody ask you to say that he was in the bed? It's okay.
I know.
It's okay.
I feel so guilty, like I could have done something at any point in this.
But you're not. You're his brother. And you have a mother that's telling you what to do. And so, I understand why you feel the way that you do, but at the same time, you have to look at it. You think that your mother's telling you to do what's best for him, right? That's what you've been telling me.
Yeah. And I know she wants what's best for all of us.
So, I'm back to my question. Did somebody ask you to say his name's on the bunk bed?
I came up with that on my own because I didn't want.
This is untrue. Again, the police have access to the cameras that were placed in and around Timothy's living environment. Paul and Shanda accidentally recorded the last moments of Timothy's life as well as their reaction to his death. I will leave the audio recording of their reaction in the description box down below, but after finding her son dead on the floor, Shanda tells Paul to put some pants on him and make it seem like he'd been sleeping in the bed in the other room. She also is recorded saying that she has to lie to the police about that because things will look really bad. If you listen to the audio, Shanda is telling Paul what to do, down to saying we have to tell him he was on a hunger strike and wouldn't eat. So why is Paul trying so hard to defend his mother? We've already established that Paul has been groomed by his mother to believe she is a savior of sorts. When his father kicked him out of their home after he became an adult, he reached out to her and found that she was willing to take him in. Add to the fact that she didn't have 8 other people living in the house. He felt like he had found a paradise. His mother was dishonest about why she hadn't been involved in his life, and leveraged his anger at his father for her benefit. She was his savior, his protector, the parent he always wanted. She was a good person in his eyes, and everything she had ever done was justified. He knows that lying to the police is wrong. He said as much at the beginning of this interrogation, but he doesn't want the person he viewed as saving his life to be taken away from him. He doesn't want her to go to jail or be seen as a bad person, so he is taking some of the blame off of her, even though it would make no sense for him to be the mastermind behind the lies.
You came up with that on your own?
Yeah, because...
So tell me what really happened in the morning then, because obviously what was told to us wasn't the truth. What really happened when you guys, somebody found him, or...
I woke up and I had been grabbing my shoes, and it was at that point that it basically all played out like we said. The whole morning thing was exact. He wasn't breathing in the closet. It was the closet though. We had to get him out of the closet to try and resuscitate.
So it's you and your mother that tried to get him out of the closet?
We did get him out.
Okay.
And we tried to resuscitate.
Who noticed him first? You or
my mother?
Okay. Did she had asked you via text to check on him on the way up? That's not what happened. She said, hey, can you check on him on your way upstairs? Do you remember that text message at all?
No.
Okay.
There might have been one that I didn't see, but...
Okay. So you guys pull him out of the closet.
And we tried to resuscitate him. We gave him rescue breaths. His breath smelled horrible. I thought maybe he might have still been capable of being resuscitated because his mouth was still wet.
Yeah.
So I thought maybe it had just been recent, so we could do something, but...
When you were at work, right, you came home at about 2, does that sound right, or is that...
Yeah, that was true, because... Okay. What was it? It was the day after the 4th of July or so? What's today's date?
Yeah, today's the 7th. This was
the 7th.
Yeah,
it was on the 5th, so...
Well, it's the 5th when you were at work, and then you come home in the morning, though.
Yes, and... Yeah, some of the servers there were still people in the lobby, and we had to finish that off. I'm the general utility, so I have to break down the machine, clean the outside, clean the floors.
Gotcha. So when you guys pull him out of the closet, does he have clothes on at that point, or is he in a diaper, or what's that state?
He had a shirt. I think we had put him in pants, or sweatpants, but I don't know, maybe some point in the night he took them off. I don't know about that.
When you say we, you weren't there though when you went to bed, right?
No.
So how would you know if we put him in sweatpants? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So do you know if he had pants on or not?
No, honestly. But he didn't have them when we got him out. He had the diaper on, at least.
So he has the diaper on. You're saying that he has his shirt on? What shirt did he have on?
The very same sweatshirt that we found him in. Because obviously we didn't want him to get cold. Or I don't think Mama wanted him to get cold. I'm pretty sure she texted me about that. I'm not sure.
Okay. So you guys pull him out. Does he have pants on or no pants on?
None, no.
And when we get there, he has pants on.
Yeah, she had me put them on.
She asked you to put pants on. What
Yeah.
was that for?
I don't know.
And so you guys, at that time, she decides that she's going to lie to him and say that he was in the bunk bed? I don't understand.
I don't know.
Clearly
She doesn't want to seem like she's bad, that we weren't neglecting him. And even if that's if it somehow ended up like that, it was never intentional.
Right. Well,
This is true. They were not neglecting him. Neglect tends to refer to someone's needs being ignored, and that is not the case here. Shanda and Paul were aware of Timothy's needs. They knew he needed to be in a steady, safe environment to thrive. They just enjoyed taking their frustration out on him. Also, the assertion that his murder wasn't intentional. Therefore, his mother is blameless and not a bad person is as ludicrous as when Sarah Boone said it.
I mean, if we talk, right, there's all these things where you're like, she didn't want to seem like this. She didn't want to seem like this. She didn't want to seem like this. Did you know that it all seems like that, right?
Yes, I know.
It does. And he clearly was neglected because he died from it, right? The reality is that he was. That's why we're here talking today. So he was very much neglected.
Paul literally begins to fold in on himself as the officers tell him that Timothy was abused and neglected, as if the truth of the matter is too much for him to handle. Up until this point, he's been able to project the version of the story his mother told him, that Timothy was a bad child, that he deserved to be punished, and that she is a good parent who would never purposely harm them. Simply hearing that that isn't true causes the 20-year-old to collapse in on himself. Again, the officer isn't confronting Paul with any new information. He isn't taking him to task, and he keeps his voice incredibly calm and comforting, but even still, it seems that the statement of fact, in this case, has a profound effect on Paul.
And the fact that, she had asked you to put hot sauce on his private parts.
She asked, but I never did.
You never did that?
No.
Okay. And she had asked you to put hot sauce directly into his mouth. Did you do that?
Yes.
Is that on the 5th, the day kind of leading up to all this stuff?
Yeah.
How much hot sauce did you put in there?
Yeah.
And whose idea was that to put that hot sauce in there?
Hers.
And what was the purpose of that?
Again, she thought the whole unresponsive was an act.
She thought it was an act. Which clearly, very clearly it wasn't. I mean,
yeah.
Where is the hot sauce that you used? Is that the one that was in the bathroom, or is there a different one?
That was one in the bathroom, yeah.
Okay. How do you feel about lying during this? How does that make you feel?
I just hate it. I know she doesn't want to be the bad guy. She never wanted this. We loved him so much. And
I don't think it's about love at this point. I think it's about not knowing what to do, not knowing how to handle the situation.
We didn't know how to do anything.
I don't think you knew.
The worst punishment I've ever gotten in Oklahoma, it was my father. He spanked me with a belt so hard that my butt was bruised. And at another point, they had me do wall sits. He had me do wall sits while holding 2 cans of chicken noodle soup out like this. And that was when I was in high school. I could hardly get to school the next couple of days because I had to walk. And my limbs were so stiff and filled with lactic acid that it was just painful to try and even get across the street.
Yeah.
And again, bruises on my backside too, where it was really hard to sit at school.
Okay, but that is not even remotely as bad as what they did to Timothy. The way he brought this experience up made it seem like he was about to recount a harrowing tale of extended abuse like Timothy went through. But instead, while being questioned about his brother's murder, which he took part in, he says the worst punishment his father ever gave him was spanking him with a belt and making him do wall sits. I'm sure that was painful, but now let's use our empathy for a moment. You forced your brother to sit in freezing cold baths for upwards of 9 hours. You poured hot sauce directly into his mouth, refused to let him eat anything, made him do wall sits for 3 hours, forced him to stand with his hands over his head in a stress position used in war, forced him to run up and down the stairs of the home for hours, and once left him overnight in the garage while it was freezing. I don't feel sorry that your dad spanked you one time, and to sit there, unable to understand that your dad is not the evil parent in this situation is alarming. To be so enamored with the lies you've been told by your mother about the situation you found yourself in, to take the moment to try and somehow get some consolation from the detective is disturbing. Paul actively took part in the murder of his brother, but cannot find it within himself to face that fact, or to believe that his mother could possibly be wrong.
What other kinds of things? Did you guys ever put hot sauce in your mouth? Did you ever put hot sauce like in his eyes or anything like that?
Not that I know of. I think at one point he may have, after he'd eaten, he had forgotten to wash his hands and rubbed his eye.
Okay.
And at one point I intentionally done this.
Did you ever directly put hot sauce into his eye?
No, I remember, but when that happened, I helped him wash out his eyes to make sure that it wouldn't sting so much. Or it wouldn't sting at all. I'm not sure if it helped or not. But they said he was good after. I think that was a couple of weeks back.
Okay.
Right.
What else can you tell me about what happened there at the What other types of punishments did you guys have for him?
I know at one point that he was actually refusing to eat. We would give him his food and he would just be stubborn and sit there and just slowly, it was regular bread, nothing else on it. Just chow down to the point where it was basically he was trying to waste time. He could be upstairs.
Where did he spend most of his time?
In his room. We wouldn't make him stand. Sometimes we would have him kneeling, like on his knees, like this, facing one of the corners, but
What was that for?
Notice how this completely innocuous action is being framed by Paul. At a certain point, when Timothy was given food to eat, he ate it slowly in order to spend more time upstairs. This teenager, who would be locked in a dark closet for hours, forced to wear motion sensors and lay in his own excrement, would purposely take his time eating the sparse food they would give him because he didn't want them to continue to torture him. But even that is recontextualized as duplicitous on Timothy's part. There was nothing this kid could do right in the eyes of his abusers. If he ate, it was either too much or too slow. If he needed to go to the bathroom at night, he either had to soil himself or be forced to set off an alarm that would wake up the entire house, which meant him getting punished either way. If he tried to obey their rules or do what they said and find any sort of respite for himself, that was still viewed as evil. Paul believing somehow that making Timothy sit on his knees for hours with his hands over his head is somehow a notch down from them making him do wall sits is almost unbelievable. And again, I should point out that he just described his father spanking him the one time as being the worst experience of his life. The lack of empathy for his own brother is astounding.
For punishment?
yeah, I don't even know if it was for at this point. I'm not sure.
But where did he spend most of his time?
It was in that room.
The closet there?
Yeah, I think less than 3 or so weeks ago we've been having him try and do schoolwork. But the thing is that he's just, at this point, I'm slightly curious on how he was even in sophomore year. He was supposed to be a junior next year, but we weren't sure if we were going to be able to do that because he was flunking everything. And my mother graded fairly. She used the actual answers that were on a website or in textbook of some sort.
Yeah.
But
He was failing because he was being tortured and abused to the point where at the end of his life, he had little cognitive function. Imagine being asked to focus on schoolwork when you haven't eaten anything in days, are being forced to sit in ice baths, and can barely hold your own weight.
back in Oklahoma, he was also even destructive at school, destroying textbooks, desks, really anything.
So
He was a destructive child.
And like this is all that happened, right? Where do you and your mom agree to tell the same story that he was in the bunk bed, or how does that happen? You couldn't have both just possibly made up the same story.
No.
So what happened? She told you, right? She told you what to say. Okay. She told you what to say. Because why? Did she tell you why? Does it look bad for you guys?
It's not just that. We loved him.
Can I ask you this, like, straight up? You keep saying love, love. Do you feel like this was love? That he's dead now because he couldn't eat food? Does that feel like love to you?
No.
He's dead because he couldn't eat.
No.
And I don't know anybody that thinks that's love. What I think's happening is your mom's convinced you that she's this perfect person. And she's asking you to do all these things that are literally killing your brother.
I know she's not perfect.
How is that love? How is love? How is love ice baths? How is love handcuffing? And how is love restricting movement? And how is love hot sauce in the mouth and only eating bread with? What if you only got to eat bread? How would you feel? What if you only got to eat bread with hot sauce? Would you eat?
No.
You're pretty skinny already. It wouldn't take you long.
This is my natural weight. I have an overactive metabolism.
But it wouldn't take you long to be very much skin and bones if all you got to eat was bread and hot sauce. Because how could you eat it? And how could you feel good about eating it? Was he throwing up stuff that he was eating?
Forcefully, he would force himself to get it back up.
When? Like recently, in the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, he would force himself, honestly.
You ever think it's because maybe it was painful? It's hot sauce. It's not like that just goes away. Did you ever complain about pain, stomach pain, pain from using the bathroom?
Not that I know of, no. I do know that my mother, she's not perfect, but she's not a bad person.
When the officer talks to Shanda negatively, Paul gets visibly uncomfortable, even whispering for him to stop at one point. It's imperative to Paul's worldview that his mother is a good and just person, even when the truth doesn't reflect that. Comparing his body language here to when he was trying to take the blame for his brother's abuse and the lies they told the cops is informative, as he was more relaxed when throwing himself under the bus.
Do you know, can I ask you this? Do you know of any good people who starved a child to death? Tell me of one that you know. Tell me of one that you know. That's a child who has a lot of problems, right? That's not a child that's taking care of themselves. They can't take care of themselves because you guys are restricting where he can go and what he can do. And if he does something wrong, you're punishing him by giving him ice baths and hot sauce and only feeding him bread. How is that? How is that a loving person? How is that a loving mother? You know what that sounds like to me? And honestly, the worst mother I've ever met in my entire life is what it sounds like to me.
I know. But she's not.
Maybe she wasn't to you. Maybe she was a good mother to you. And maybe she wasn't to Gabriel. It sounds like she's a very good mother to Gabriel. But to one of the three children, she didn't care. You can say it if you want. She starved him to death because he wouldn't stop taking food. Well, maybe he's taking food because he wants to live. Have you ever thought about that?
Yes.
Maybe he's stealing food so that he can survive. He's dead because he didn't get food.
He knows that.
Again, Paul has physically collapsed in on himself while hearing the officer talk about his mother.
Well, that's not anybody's fault but your mother's. And you can try to take some of the blame if you want, but it's her fault because every single time I see a message in here, it's her telling you what to do. And she put you right in the middle of this. She put you right in the middle of this where it looks like some of the stuff's your idea. And it actually looks like in some of these things that you kind of enjoy it. That you kind of enjoy punishing him for doing wrong things. Do you feel like you kind of enjoy punishing him for that stuff?
No.
Maybe not that he was in pain, but that you were in charge and you got to tell him, you can't do that. Go do this. This is your punishment. Did you like some of that stuff?
No.
Did she like some of that stuff?
No.
How come you guys are laughing and joking about it sometimes with smiley faces and like...
If it's the upside down smiley face?
Yeah, what's that mean?
It's the opposite of happiness.
Okay.
It means that I'm really angry, and she's kept me calm, like I said.
Because he made you mad a lot, right? It sounds like he made you mad a lot. But when you look back on it, do you think he really could control it? Clearly he needed help. He didn't need punishment. He needed some help. He couldn't make those decisions or do those things on his own. You saw it over and over and over and over again, right? What was your mother's choice? Her choice was more punishment, less food. More punishment. The only food you get is bread. And the only bread you get sometimes is with the hottest hot sauce that we can find. That's all you get to eat. There's no way that you can look at yourself and think that's okay. And that your mom's good for that. She was doing what's best for him. How could that be best for him? Why couldn't it be a piece of chicken that's cooked? Why couldn't he eat that? Why does it have to be bread with hot sauce? It's not about punishment. You need food to survive. You need food to live. He didn't get to live because of that. Because of what you guys did. And I'm sitting here talking to you because I think that way more of it has to do with your mom than you. I don't think that you're this bad person who was out here doing these things. But you're also still not telling me the whole truth about what happened that night. About the night that he ended up dead. That there's more to that story.
The officer has already seen the text messages between Paul and his mother, but likely saw some of the footage taken from the security cameras. He knows that Shanda was the one in control, and that Paul is trying to take some of the blame off of her. He's trying to get Paul to realize what is actually going on, because that doesn't seem to have sunk in for him. He doesn't seem to realize that his mother is definitely going to jail for murder, and that it doesn't matter how often he says she is a good person.
I've told you everything that I have. I don't want to live a life where I regret the fact that I hid somehow, something, and I've told you everything I know.
How do you feel about living a life where you hid that your brother wasn't eating from society, that you hid that your brother was dying? How do you feel about that?
I hate myself, okay? If I could take his place right now, if I could give him back his life, I'd do it in a daggone heartbeat.
No, he wouldn't. Paul is not a bright individual, but even idiots can be manipulative. This is a sort of manipulation you see in children and unintelligent adults, where when faced with the consequences of their actions, they try and make themselves the victim. For example, if you were to confront someone who hurt your feelings about something and instead of apologizing, they say something along the lines of, "I know I'm the worst person ever. You'd be better off being friends with someone else because I am just so horrible." They attempt to make it seem like you were attacking them by explaining how they made you feel, so you have to comfort them. Paul is likely not cognizant that he is trying to manipulate the officer, but this is a behavior that most children grow out of. Paul would not trade his life for his brother's. He just doesn't like being confronted with the truth about his mother. Truly, I don't think it's occurred to him that he will be going to jail alongside her.
Did your mom ever do anything like this to you?
No. Not even back when she and my father were together. The punishments were him.
When did this stuff kind of start? Sounds like to me it started after your stepdad was out of the house.
Because Timothy would take advantage of that situation. We were all stressed. And he would take advantage of that. Anything he can find to take advantage of. Almost his entire life, except for, I think, when he was still a baby. He would find some way to take advantage of whatever he can.
Was there ever...
That cannot factually be possible, and assigning any kind of blame to a baby is a sign of narcissism. Given Paul's propensity for regurgitating his mother's beliefs, I would venture to say this is something she stated often. Babies cannot manipulate their parents. The only thing babies can do is try to survive. They cry, they poop, they sleep, and that's basically it. The fact that Shanda and Paul would characterize the person they murdered this way, as if they were born evil, is disturbing.
Food restrictions when... Is it Eric?
Or Dad?
Yeah, not Eric. Adam? Adam's stepdad to you, correct?
Yes.
Was there ever food restriction with bread only when he was in the house?
No, because...
Was the house messy like it is now? Disgusting.
It wasn't as messy. With all the stress that's been going on, we've had moments where, yeah, we could get it cleaned up, but...
Does your mom feel bad at all about Giving him just bread and
Yes.
giving him hot sauce and locking him in the closet and
Yes, she
handcuffing
hates
him.
it.
And
She hates it. She never once enjoyed it.
ice baths. Ice baths. She gave him ice bath on the day that he died, right? Leading up to it. And she wanted him to sleep in the tub. That's what I read. Did that happen? Did he sleep in the tub?
No.
He didn't.
No.
He didn't die in that bathtub and you guys dragged him into that closet and waited for the morning to call the police? That's
No.
not what happened.
No. It's not.
Do you think she did that? Do you think that message is just a little bit suspicious? That she sends you at just about midnight that says, he's in the closet, I had to drag him in there. You don't think he was already dying or dead at that point?
I was working. I didn't read that message until basically I got home.
But do you think she sent that for a reason? Why would she send that?
I don't know.
Doesn't it seem like maybe he was already dead? That she put him in there so that he could wake up and have died in his sleep? Because she can't call the police when he's in an ice bath and he freezes and he dies. Not freezes per se, but he dies in the bath. And she dragged him in there. Did she talk to you about that? Did she tell you the truth about what really happened?
I don't know at this point.
She did, right? I don't want you to lie to me.
No, I don't know if he died in there. I don't know where. I remember. I know that when I got up, he was gone.
Paul conceding that his mother could have dragged Timothy's dying body to the closet and could have tried to make it seem like he died in the closet is a big step forward in terms of how he sees his mother. Every time something disparaging has been said about Shanda, he folds into himself and defends her honor, saying she would never hurt anyone, despite murdering her son. But now he agrees, albeit tentatively, that she could have lied to him.
And when was the last time you saw him alive?
The 5th.
What time? Ballpark?
I think because of my bike, Mama had to pick me up and drop me off at work. So I was very late getting there, but I'd let them know beforehand. I know he was alive before I left.
You know he was alive when you left for work.
Yeah.
And you don't really know exactly what time it was.
I think she managed to get there a little bit after 6. I managed to get to work around 6:35-ish.
So she says to you at 11:49 p.m. on 7/5. She says, please set your alarm for 6 a.m. I ended up dragging him back to a small room. That's talking about the closet.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't going to risk him having access to the tub or other things overnight. Wasn't he already in the tub? So what do you mean risk him having access to the tub overnight? He's still trying to be, she says he's still trying to be stupid, but I will tell you more tomorrow while I take you to work, describing how many different ways I've proved that he's still faking. He's still doing it.
The thing was that yesterday,
ridiculous.
I had offered him a pizza roll. Because I wanted to truly test whether he was faking or not. And at first he didn't move. I'm like, okay, maybe this is, but then he moved and went to try and grab it. I'm like, okay, I don't even know. I don't know anymore.
Imagine you saw a person starving on the street. They are less than 100 pounds, skin and bone, and can barely move, much less recognize where they are. You offer them a warm piece of food, something small, but more than what they've had in a long time. And then when they move to take it, you pull it back and come to the conclusion that they weren't actually starving the whole time. There's very little in this world that is as inhumane and cruel as what Paul just described. His brother was dying, he offered him food, then punished him further for trying to take it. Mind you, this was at his mom's behest, based on their text messages, but the lack of empathy and understanding given to Timothy in his final days is nothing short of horrific.
How? Who do you love in your life?
My family?
Have you ever thought about starving them?
No, of course.
Have you ever thought about not giving them food as a punishment?
No, of course.
Have you ever thought about giving them hot sauce so that they would listen?
No.
Or they would do what was told? You somehow don't think those things are okay. Do you think those things are okay?
No.
Because everybody knows they're not. Except the smartest woman in the room. She's the one person that doesn't know that's not okay? You're joking, right?
No.
The smartest woman in the room is the one that doesn't know you can't do those things. No, it's all very intentional. The smartest woman in the room knows. She graduated secondary class from law school. She graduated with honors from college and from law school. But she doesn't know that not giving your kid food is going to make him sick and die.
We gave him food. She even told me to make sure that he had a good amount of she would tell me on random days. They were never consecutive, I don't believe, for the hot sauce punishment. But other than that, it was always bread and rice. At one point, she even asked me to put some broth. I think that she wanted chicken, but we didn't have any, so I used beef for some rice. She cared. She never wanted this. We didn't.
But you sent her pictures of him looking dead, right? Looking almost dead.
Yeah. When was that?
That's your brother.
Yeah.
That's June 13th, less than a month ago. You sent this picture to her and you said, he's looking like a skeleton. We need to give him more food. But you guys didn't give him more food over the next couple of weeks. You guys gave him less and more punishment and less bread and more bread with hot sauce. That's what really happened. You reached out to her and said, this is scary looking, right? You probably thought, he can barely walk. You sent a picture of his legs, right? You sent this picture of his legs to your mother right here. You sent this to her. And what'd you say? Something along the lines of, no wonder he can barely stand up or walk. Look at that. And your mother, being smart and intelligent and the smartest woman in the room, she didn't do anything about that. Didn't think about taking him to the doctor. Didn't think about, we have to give him some more food, like seriously now. Instead, what do you think she did? She gave him less and more punishment. Until what? He ends up dead. And what did she tell the police? He was always wearing baggy clothes, so I didn't notice anything until last night. Another just blatant lie. Another blatant lie. If this was all an accident, why would she lie to us? If this was all an accident, why wouldn't she just say, we were having a really hard time with him. I thought he was okay. No, she knows that he looked like this. That he looked like this. Look at his face right there. That's not who your brother looked like, is it?
No.
He didn't look like that. Does that look like it? That looks like somebody in a casket that you see at a funeral. That's what that looks like. And it's sickening and disgusting. And you sent this picture to her too, didn't you? You sent that to her, didn't you?
Yeah.
You sent that to her on July 5th. Right before the day leading up to him being found dead. Does he look like he's okay right there?
No.
Why'd you send that picture?
I was concerned.
Yeah, once again, you're not the smartest person in the room and you're concerned. Did she do anything about it? No, you know what she said? He's gonna sleep in the bath all night tonight. He's sleeping in the bath all night tonight. The smartest woman in the room. He's getting in the bathtub all night for punishment. Make sure the shower curtain's away so I can see him. And what happens later on that night? At some point between the time this picture is sent and the time you wake up in the morning, he dies. Because he's alive right here, right?
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
He's alive. Did she tell you to snap him and see if he blinks? Or is that a different time?
That was...
Is that this time or a different time? You smack him in the face to see if he's faking it?
I was trying to see what was going on, trying to see if he would even respond, if what was going on with him.
Because to you, not the smartest person in the room, to you, you already know. This isn't okay. This is a dying person. This is your brother dying. Ooh, sorry about that. This is your brother. And he's almost dead.
Another thing, so I kept setting him up.
Yeah.
And I would come back a little later and I would notice that he actually had moved himself back down. I wasn't sure if it was intentional or if he was trying to clear up his airway maybe.
But just move it. Well, what is that supposed to mean? Well, he must be okay because he moved a little bit? That's where we're at?
I wasn't
He's
sure about
so far gone that you're like questioning if he moves a little bit, he must be okay? Come on.
I wasn't sure.
Where did that stuff come from? Where did that come from? Didn't your mother send you messages that said, I saw him move? I saw him. Did she send that to you?
Yes.
Then what does that mean to her? That it's fake? Is this fake to you?
No.
Is your brother lying on the floor dead? Is that fake to you?
No.
You know who it didn't matter to at all? You know who I didn't see shed a single tear the whole day I was there? Your mom. Did you see her cry a real tear?
Yes.
I saw a whole bunch of fake. You know what my job is to see? Fake. You know what I saw a whole bunch of? Fake. Because at the end of the day, your brother gone, that's a problem for her that's gone. She never was trying to solve this problem. She was never trying to make him into this perfect person because she's smart enough to know that isn't going to happen. He's never going to be you. He's never going to be Gabriel because he has too many problems. He's not going to be that. She's smart enough to know that. That's how we ended up here. The smartest woman in the room took advantage of you. And she asked you to do these things over and over and over again. And this is the woman you're sitting here saying she cares so much. Does she really though? She asked you to handcuff your brother, pour hot sauce in his mouth. She asked you to pour hot sauce on his penis. Your mother asked you to do those things because she cares so much. She put you in that spot. And now you're right in the middle of an investigation in which your brother died. And this is criminal. This is a crime. Did your brother deserve to die?
No.
Should he be dead right now?
No.
Is he dead by the choices of others?
Yeah.
Who made those choices? Who made the choices for him to be dead right now? Did you make some of those choices?
No.
Who made those choices?
Mama?
Yeah. She did, didn't she? That's what's real.
That's what's real.
Now, did you do some of the things she asked you to do?
Yes.
Absolutely you did.
Because I thought I
does that put you
knew what was best.
Does that put you in the wrong? Doing those things?
Does it?
It does. It puts you in the wrong. It does.
Because
But you thought she knew what was best. You just said I heard you say it.
I knew. I thought she knew it. I thought maybe I thought maybe it would somewhere would change.
Because she's smart, right? And she knows what she's talking about, and she loves you, all of you, and she cares all about all of you. But when you really step back and you look at yourself and Gabriel and Timothy, were all three of you treated the same?
No.
Was one of you treated like, who really cares? Who really cares? Punish him, punish him, punish him, punish him. Ice bath, hot sauce, handcuffs, closet. He lived in a closet. You said he spent most of his day in a closet, peeing on himself, pooping on himself, eating only bread, sometimes only with hot sauce on it. It's the hottest hot sauce you can get your hands on. That's life. He's probably relieved that he's dead. He's probably relieved because that's torture. He was tortured by you guys for months. Tortured.
Though we can't see him, Paul has collapsed in on himself once again. The officer has skillfully gone through everything that Shanda and Paul had put Timothy through, how none of it was okay, and how Shanda knew what she was doing while it was happening. Though Paul denied any wrongdoing on her part initially, after repeatedly being told how obvious the abuse was and how his mother wanted to pour hot sauce on his brother's penis, he seems to realize just how horrible what they did was. The officer also stated, in no unclear terms, that both he and his mother are directly responsible for his brother's death, which is murder. Up until this point, Paul has been trying to defend Shanda, to say she was a good mother, and to paint Timothy's death as a freak accident. He seems to be operating under the belief that if he said all those things she told him to say, that they would both walk away from Timothy's murder unscathed. But he now knows for a fact that that is not going to happen. I usually clip segments of interviews a lot earlier than this last portion, but it was vitally important to hear that breakdown, as it would be the catalyst for Paul's eventual turn on his mother. After some time in prison, Paul's lawyer approached the prosecution in the case with an offer. If they were to remove the first-degree murder charge, he would plead guilty to 1 count of first-degree child abuse. In exchange, Paul would go on to testify against his mother. It seemed that time away from her influence, around others who could more readily understand what he was being charged with, opened his eyes to how controlling his mother had been.